We had all been called into work, so we started to gather in our conference room, each of us putting our things down at our spot. And my boss came in, and she always took her same place. And she would carry these big binders with her, and she would shove a bunch of papers in that she needed for her work. And so she sets her stuff down. She starts our meeting, and about 10 minutes into it, something triggers her. And she starts yelling and screaming, and she's cussing at us. And all of a sudden, she gets so mad, she pushes her stuff away from her. And as her stuff goes, our stuff, there's just papers flying everywhere. And then she gets up and leaves the room and leaves her staff sitting in there. And I remember thinking, is this what I gave up my Saturday for? And as a believer, how do I respond to that? We know that the Bible teaches us to honor those who are in authority, but how do we do that when the leader doesn't deserve that? And why? Why do we do that? It's because of Jesus and what he's done for us. Romans 5:8 says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." You see, when we didn't deserve it, he died for us, when we didn't deserve it. And when we understand that his sacrificial love for us, the gift that it is, then we understand that it should infiltrate every corner of our lives. But not only does he love us unconditionally and sacrificially, he also equips us. Listen to this quote from the book, The Hidden Peace. It says, "Imagine a future you walking into every room, at work, with family and social settings, with a humble confidence formed by the Holy Spirit. How powerful and stabilizing would it feel to be certain that regardless of any situation you walk into, positive or negative, you are connected to him, his love, and his resources. Whatever would happen, you know in your bones, God's got me, I'm going to be okay, and he will get me through it." And this is our reality as followers of Jesus. He equips us for each moment of each day. And so when we understand his love for us and that he equips us, man, then we understand that there is a calling on every area of our lives, and it's different and it's difficult, especially when the leader doesn't deserve it, and it's countercultural. But because of Jesus and his love, we lead out by honoring up. So what does that even look like practically? First, we see the value in people. My friend Rebecca works for an accounting firm, and she used to work for one of the big four accounting firms. And there was a time when she was at one of those firms that she said the fatigue that her leader was causing from the toxic environment that she created was so great that Rebecca said it was starting to take a toll on her physically. And so she said she started to pray about the situation because she just was at a loss. And she said she decided to start to pray for her leader. And she said, I noticed when I prayed for my leader, I started to see the value in her as a person. And she said, I started to practice empathy toward her. She said, I would ask myself, what pressure might she be facing right now? And she said, I would even think about, if I were in her shoes, how would I want my direct reports to respond to me? And she said, and then I started to treat her like that. She said, I started to pray that my leader would be successful. And she said, in fact, I prayed for success in every area of her life. And she said, when I started to pray for her success, I couldn't hate her any longer. And she said that at the end of their busy season, that leader actually came to Rebecca, and she said, hey, I want you to know I saw that you were empathetic to me during that busy time. See, the leader saw that Rebecca cared for her because she saw her value. And we see the value in people. It's a way to lead out by honoring up. But next, we humbly bring our best. I think Esther in the Bible, she does this really well. So she was married to King Xerxes, who was a pagan, evil, selfish king who he listened to evil people. And this guy named Haman was one of those evil people. And Haman comes up with this horrible plan to kill all the Jews. And it seems that Xerxes just nonchalantly agrees to it. So Haman sends out this decree for all the Jews to be killed. And in Esther chapter 3, verse 15, it says, so this is after the decree went out, it says, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. And when the city was thrown into confusion, we see Esther, who once questioned her identity as a child of God. Esther, she steps up to humbly bring her best. But what I love about Esther is she is so strategic. I think that she actually employs this divinely inspired wisdom and social awareness in how she approaches King Xerxes. And if you read Esther chapters 4 through 8, you see how strategic she is. So she plans this banquet for Xerxes and Haman. And it seems like she's really thoughtful in how she approaches the king, and that she's even thought through the right timing and how to approach the king. And when she does approach the king, he listens to her, he changes the decree, and the Jews are saved. You see, she humbly brought her best, and she was strategic. And those are all tips that we can take and use in our work. And we might not be in life or death situations every day, but I think what's interesting is that we can be strategic in how we approach our leaders. Craig Rochelle says to know their rhythms and the best time to approach them. So maybe it's not first thing Monday morning, but he says that when you do approach them with kindness and clear communication. Or maybe humbly bringing your best. Looks my friend Heather. She has her own consulting business. And what I've noticed about her is she has chosen to bring her best attitude and her best work. And she has this one client who they just operate in a chaotic environment. And in fact, there's not a lot that they really deserve. Things are always up in the air. They don't communicate well. But what I've noticed about Heather is that she has chosen to operate with care and grace toward them. In fact, she told me one time, she said, I just don't enter into their chaos. I don't enter into their chaos. But what she's doing and how she works with them is she's showing them a different way to work. Because Heather does her work on time, with excellence, and she doesn't scramble at the last minute. She does her best work, and she brings her best attitude. And it's a way to lead out by honoring up. And then we speak truth. Daniel in the Bible, he does this really well with King Nebuchadnezzar. So Nebuchadnezzar was another evil, selfish king. He captures Jerusalem, and Daniel is actually one of the people who's captured. And so Nebuchadnezzar has this dream. And in those days, dreams were believed to predict the future of the kingdom. And so they were so important that Nebuchadnezzar actually had people on staff to help interpret the dreams. Except in this specific situation, no one could interpret the dream. And so Nebuchadnezzar gets mad, and he says he's going to kill all the wise people and the interpreters. And again, that's when we see a follower of God step up. And you can see Daniel's response in Daniel chapter 2. And it's really interesting because it parallels Esther's response. Because Daniel, he asks his friends to pray for him. He prays. He boldly approaches the king, and he interprets the dream, and he credits God for interpreting the dream. And what's interesting about Daniel's situation is he kind of remains the source to Nebuchadnezzar that points Nebuchadnezzar to God's truth. And down the road, Nebuchadnezzar is humbled, and he actually confesses to the one true God. And my study notes say that God used Daniel's faithfulness to bring light to Nebuchadnezzar. You see, an undeserving leader came to know God's mercy because a follower of God chose to lead out by honoring up. And the God who did that is the same God who is still working in all of our businesses and in all of our lives today. And he wants to use you just like he's using my friend Rebecca in her accounting firm, just like he used Esther, just like he's using Heather in her consulting business, and just like he used Daniel. So lead out by honoring up. I want to introduce you to my family. You can tell who the spicy one is in the bunch. More on her in a minute. But in September of 2023, we moved from Lubbock to Nashville. And when we moved to Nashville, Haddon, our son, wanted to play soccer. So we enrolled him on a team, and we immediately get this email that says, "Thanks for joining the league. Your team has no coach." And I was like, this is not on us. We moved here literally like 2 weeks ago. Somebody else needs to step up. Well, we keep getting these emails that say your team has no coach. So finally, my husband, Brandon, replies to all the parents, and he says, "I have never played soccer. I don't know how to play soccer. I have never coached soccer, but if no one else will do this, I'll be the coach." And so you can guess, Brandon became the coach. So he organizes his first practice. We have at this park, and the guys are all playing over here. There's a playground over here where Carolina Tate, our daughter's playing. And I don't even think she's paying attention to what's going on. And later that night, she comes up to me and she's like, "Mama, I'm really worried." And I said, "What are you worried about?" Because I thought it had been kind of an average day. And she said, "I am really worried that Daddy doesn't have a clue what he's doing as soccer coach." And I was like, "Well, he technically doesn't, but it's going to be okay. He's going to figure it out." So the season starts. Here are the Blue Predators. We had a really strong donut game. That was about the only thing we had going for us. But the season starts, and we get to know some of these guys on our team, and we learn that some of them are just going through really hard times with their families. And Brandon was able to be a consistent, fun, encouraging presence in their life each week. And I remember thinking, maybe it's bigger than the game. And then we had a lot of losses, but we had one really tough loss in particular. And you know how after the game, like, you line up and you go and you shake hands with the other team? Well, Brandon's getting everybody in line, and he gets them all in the line, and then he comes to the head of the line to lead the team. And what he doesn't see is that everyone behind him, these cute kids, put their hands behind their back. And when they walked past the winning team, they refused to shake hands. And as a parent, you're mortified because you want to be like, "I didn't teach that." And so, like, we're all screaming and we're like, "Brandon, do you see what's happening?" And he turns around and he sees that they've refused to shake hands, and he's like, everyone, take a knee. And he's like, "Absolutely not. That is not how you lose. In life, you will lose. That is not how you do it. You hold your head up high and you honor the winning team." And he keeps going on and on. And I remember again in that moment thinking, maybe it's bigger than the game. Because see, that was a life lesson that a little guy takes with him as he goes. And it hit me in that moment that Brandon's purpose was bigger than his role. His purpose was bigger than his role of an unpaid volunteer coach to 5-year-olds who couldn't win. And your purpose is bigger than your role. As you lead out by honoring up, your purpose is bigger than your role. See, Jesus calls us to follow him, to see the value in people like he did, to humbly bring our best like he did, and to speak truth like he did. Our roles are probably going to shift from time to time. And in fact, they're less important. But the focus is to point others to Jesus and his amazing love. So today, in our jobs, let's lead out by honoring up. And I know that this is easier to say and harder to put into practice. So we're going to make a plan right now. And I want you to just take a few moments and think about what's one step that you can take to honor up.